Welcome back. I believe we left off in output devices. And I asked you a question before I left. And that question was, why does a computer seem to slow down after a few years? I mean, everybody's probably faced this. You have a brand new computer, you open it up, and right outside the box, blazing fast, everything you click on just pops up, everything runs smoothly, there's never any problems. After a couple of years, that becomes a little less of a problem there. You're not quite as fast. Things seem to be running slower. It doesn't seem to be going quite fast at all. So the overall question is, why? Well, there's a lot of reasons your computer can mess up and screw up. You can just get random errors sometimes. Sometimes there are very good reasons your computer screws up. Maybe they've been broken. Maybe somebody went back and did, some stuff they weren't supposed to. Maybe somebody was killing a snake. It's kind of hard to tell. But let's say your computer is perfectly healthy in that way. No one took a hammer to it. You'd still notice that it slows down after a while. So the real question is, why? Well, the first reason could very possibly be memory. Now, random access memory, or RAM. Not to be confused with this kind of RAM. Basically what it is, the main memory for a computer. This is where everything that you're currently working on is going to be stored. So if you're typing a document, it's got to be stored in RAM. If you're playing a game, it's stored in RAM. Whatever you're working on, it's stored in RAM. Watching this PowerPoint, that's going to be put in RAM. Now this is what RAM typically looks like. You see there's a variety of shades and hues and colors. But deep down underneath all these, aesthetic, pretty colors is a chip. A couple of chips on a stick. And you plug that into your computer and that's where all your information is stored. They come in varying sizes, varying shapes, colors. Overall, actually, RAM is one of the cheapest things if you ever want to upgrade something. That's one of the cheapest things to upgrade. Now, RAM is volatile memory. What this basically means is it needs electricity to hold information. Without any electricity, it won't be able to keep anything. Patah. So, let's point that out a little bit. Give you a little example. Surely most of you have played Connect 4. If not, look it up. It's an epically good game, particularly back in the day. Basically, you drop your checkers in here, and you have to try to get 4 in a row. Now, every time you drop a checker, it goes down and fills a slot, until someone gets 4 in a row, or you fill up the entire board. Think of RAM just like that. Every time you open a program, it occupies a slot in RAM. And it keeps occupying slots, until you basically fill it up. Now, that's as long as it has power. Once power is gone, here's basically what happens. There's a little switch at the bottom of your Connect 4 game, and all the checkers fall out when you hit it. Well, the same happens to RAM. It can only keep that information going while you've got power. So let's talk about an example of that and make it a little clearer. Example 1. Have you ever played a game and then the power gets cut or the computer shuts down in the middle of it? You're, let's say, Mario or, first-person shooter or whatever. You're jumping in the air, you're shooting, you're doing whatever, and all of a sudden power gets cut. So you turn everything back on, you load the game back up. Are you exactly where you were when it turned off? Probably not. You're not going to be in the air shooting things. You're going to be, probably have to start all over again or start back where you last saved. Most games have what they call a save system, so it saves it on the hard drive. Now when you're actually playing the game, in between that, it's all stored in RAM. So as soon as that power is cut, all that data, all the stuff you've been doing is gone. The only thing that still exists is what's saved on the hard drive. Now for those of you who don't play games, let's use another example. You ever type 2 pages of a paper and then never save it? or it could be more than 2 pages, 5, 6 pages. I once typed a music appreciation paper. I was a page in when my little sister came in and flipped the switch on the wall, and one of those switches shuts down the entire wall where my computer is. And I never bothered saving the document. I was a page in, and then the whole computer went dead. I threw some things, I yelled quite a bit, turned the light switch back on, and my paper was gone because I never bothered to save it. Everything I typed was in RAM until you save it. Now Microsoft has autosave features and recovery features. They usually only really work if you at least saved it once, because it'll autosave to that same place every couple of minutes, so it's easy to get your stuff back if you accidentally lose it. If you never bother to save ever, then odds are you may just lose everything. So without power, you're just going to dump everything. You're going to lose everything that's going on in RAM currently. Now, here's a good example of how RAM looks. When you first turn on a computer, your RAM is empty. This little rectangle represents my RAM. Now, when I first boot up my computer, it's got to load the necessary programs to run. It's got to load, your basic hardware configuration. These are all the things, devices that are connected to me, your BIOS and various other things. Then we got to load all those startup programs, Windows, Mac, whatever, antivirus programs, all your little startup programs. Now at this point, you can actually use your computer after all this has gotten loaded. Now you'll notice that I'm already using like 1/4 to 1/3 of my RAM at this point. But now I've got all this room here. I can open up stuff if I want to. So let's say I decide to start opening programs like web browsers, games, etc. That's going to use up a portion of my RAM as well. Let's say I just decide to go completely nuts. Or I open up a program that's just ridiculously memory intensive. And I just fill up the entire amount of RAM that I have available. What happens then? The average person in my class would usually say, well, it slows down. Yeah, and it most certainly does. You're going super fast, and then all of a sudden, it's like things slow down to a crawl. It's like you're driving in a car going 100 miles an hour down the road, and all of a sudden, the car drops to 30. You're definitely going to notice the difference. Now, your computer slows down tremendously because the computer starts using the hard drive to store excess information. Now, here's your hard drive. A hard drive is much slower than RAM. I mean, hundreds of thousands of times slower. Now, it uses the hard drive normally while RAM's being used anyway. Like if you're not using anything, it'll store it there until you are. It'll go back and forth. But once your RAM completely fills up, in order to not have your computer explode or die, it's got to use the overflow on the hard drive. And like I said, it is considerably slower. And you definitely notice the difference when that happens. Now, how do we prevent that slowdown? Get more RAM. You buy more RAM, you have more room to open more stuff. You won't hit that slowdown point quite as fast. The more RAM you get, the better you typically are going to be. Now, certain systems only allow certain amounts of RAM, so you have to be careful. But it is one of the cheaper things you can buy and upgrade. Now, another thing you can do is close some stuff. Why do you need so much stuff open? Shut it all down, restart, and free up some memory. And then you won't have near the problem. Now, another reason for the slowdown, the hard drive. We just mentioned it earlier. And there's the picture again. Now let me check. I think our time's about up.